beginning the very event that we bought even last year and continuing on our particular legacy of Saral. I, Anubhav Rastogi, here from the partnerships team. Welcome to all of you and a very warm good morning to all of the attendees, all the ladies and gents. Regardless to say, this has been a very exciting year for us. And I'll say a very fateful year as well for the entire India. Let me just first start of this session by saying, by expressing Unicommerce and my solidarity with every situation that India faced during this particular, I'll say, difficult hours of COVID. These were difficult times, but at the same time, we learned a lot. And as India rises from the ashes, since it has since in the entire history of it, we rose again, and the change was very crucial one. And as we all know, what impact did it have on the e-commerce industry? Boosted up the entire digitization process by, I'd say, 5 years. And that is something that I suppose we all will agree, the panelists and the attendees alike. So beginning on that very note, this Saral, we're bringing in the very topics that are very close to everyone's heart and everyone wants to listen about that. We're bringing in domain experts from 28 partners. And they'll be pouring out their knowledge and addressing your very pain points on the following areas. The number one session right now, which we're going to be having, is going to be on D2C brands, followed by one that will be the basic toolkit of embracing or scaling up your e-commerce businesses, followed by addressing the pain points of your seamless customer experiences. And then we'll be talking about omnichannel solutions at the last session of the day. Having said that, now beginning on the note, I'd like to invite my visionary, my guide, and my leader, Mr. Kapil Makhija, the CEO of Unicommerce. Hi, Kapil sir. Morning. Fine morning, isn't it?
Yeah. Thanks for the warm introduction. Great. It's good to have all of you here. I hope all of you are keeping safe in these times. Myself, Kapil Makhija, I'm the CEO of Unicommerce, and I would like to welcome you all to the second edition of Saral, India's largest virtual e-commerce summit. We've been working for the last 9 years in this industry and have been recognized so far as a company with finest technology solutions. We work with 15,000 businesses across India, Middle East, Southeast Asia, and are currently managing 6,000 plus warehouses, 1,500 plus stores, and are processing almost 300 million transactions on an annual basis. As Anubhav mentioned, this year as well as last year, I think it has transformed the way companies and consumers have looked at e-commerce, and consumers across the country are now shopping online, and we've seen a fundamental shift in the buying behavior. And that's why we are seeing brands investing a lot in the online presence. And we've seen an explosive growth in e-commerce, particularly on trends like D2C, which is going to be the topic that we're going to cover next, and omnichannel. They have become prominent levers for a company's growth strategy. And we believe 2020 will definitely be considered as a beginning of a new era for e-commerce. We started with all of that happening. We started with the first edition of Saral last year during the first lockdown phase. And our vision was to create a virtual platform to learn about the nuances of the e-commerce business and also help aspiring e-tailers in their e-commerce journey. I think we got incredible support from our partners, from the attendees, from all the businesses last year, and had a phenomenal participation of 1,700 plus businesses. And there were some incredible ideas exchanged during those sessions, and we had a lot to take away from that. After the success last year, we are now back with our second edition. So we hope that you enjoy these. We have a power-packed weekend, 7 sessions with such distinguished panelists, and starting with the session that I'll be hosting, the first one. These sessions will be on various aspects of e-commerce, which are now become even more relevant in the post-pandemic world. So it's evolution of D2C, adoption of omnichannel, social commerce, how do you build a perfect e-commerce stack, etc. And we have some of the biggest names in e-commerce joining us in this event, likes of DHL, Netcore, ANS Commerce, Payoneer. We have Logic and Velocity and Tally, Nimbus Post, Adyogi, and many more. So we have 28 plus experts who will be sharing their wisdom and help us learn more about how to get a hang of e-commerce. I think everyone has been, it's a no-brainer for any business today to build an online presence. So we are really looking forward to learning from all the experts who will be joining us today. So we are, and most importantly, we are excited to host all of you this weekend and hope that you are able to gain some valuable insights. Without further ado, let me start with the first session, which is about evolution of D2C, how to plan for D2C into 2021 and beyond. I have with me some esteemed panelists today. So we have Amit from ANS Commerce, Abhiroop from Velocity, Mahadevan from Payoneer, and Swandeep Ji from Logic. Good to have you here. It will be great if all of you can have you a brief introduction of yours for the audience, and then maybe we can kick off the discussion.
Sure, I'll go first.
Yeah,
Thanks, Kapil. Very excited to be part of this panel. And I'm Amit Monga. I'm one of the co-founders at ANS Commerce. We are a full stack e-commerce enabler working with 110 odd brands and managing their e-commerce across technology, performance marketing, supply chain. Yeah, that's a brief background.
Great. Abhiroop, would be great if you could go next with your introduction.
Yes, hi everyone. Glad to be here, and thanks a lot for hosting us, Kapil. So I'm the founder and CEO of Velocity. We are India's largest revenue-based financing platform. We primarily provide capital to DTC brands for their marketing and inventory spends. And we look at ourselves as a long-term growth partner to support their growth capital needs. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Abhiroop. Mahadevan, if you could introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Kapil, and thanks team for inviting us and having us over here. Super excited to be present over here in this forum today, Saturday morning, afternoon, and I can see heavy participation coming in. I lead direct sales function for Payoneer in this entire region of Samina, where my mandate is to serve customers and team across Bangladesh, India, Middle East, and parts of North Africa. Payoneer is a US-based and now NASDAQ listed cross-border payments platform, and we'll learn more about it as we go on. Super excited.
Thanks, Mahadevan. Swandeep, can you hear us? We are not able to see you. If you could switch on your video.
Yeah, sorry.
Great. Would be great to hear from you as well.
Thank you, Kapil. I'm very excited for this. We are in this field for the last 27 years, providing to the 6 macro verticals, which is one of the FMCG, pharma, fashion industry. These are the one of the, and electronics. And we provide solution from manufacturing to till retail. So be it it's a supply chain management of the retail supply chain, or whether it is a distribution chain management. So we cover all. So we are covering all over India, as well as we entered into the Gulf country last year also. So there we have, and excited to have a lot of the panelists where we want with them also. I think we share a good knowledge, and today I'll gain a lot of knowledge from these ones.
Great. Swandeep, we are also hoping the same. It's always a pleasure to be connected with all the experts from the e-commerce ecosystem. Just a quick sound check. I'm seeing some messages where people are saying that the audio is not clear. Anubhav, can you hear us clearly?
You're fairly audible.
Okay.
Even Mahadevan, Abhiroop, Swandeep Ji, Amit, everyone is audible.
Okay, great. So just as a context for the session, this is we are going to keep the first 40 minutes for a broad discussion on D2C, learning from your experiences, and want to keep 20 minutes for the audience Q&A. Audience is requested to post their questions on the question and answer tab, and at the end of the discussion, we'll be happy to take your questions. Great. So with that, let's start. So I think just to kickstart the discussion, it will be good to understand from you, from each one of you, to understand one key trend that you're seeing in the broad D2C ecosystem. And Mahadevan, with you, it will be also important to understand D2C brands are actually having global aspirations now, with a lot of platforms coming in, such as Mensa and many others who are wanting to take these platforms global. So would be good to understand from you on what you're seeing on the global aspirations particularly. So Amit, starting with you, maybe you can talk about, you work with a lot of brands, both digital first as well as offline first, who you have taken D2C. What is one key trend that you're seeing in the D2C ecosystem in these aspirations of different brands on going to D2C?
I would say from a brand's perspective, important trend that we have seen is the increased amount of bandwidth that they're putting towards making this channel the priority channel within. We used to struggle 2 years, 3 years back pre-COVID. Obviously at that time, everyone was aware that this is going to be the channel, but in terms of the bandwidth available by the management was limited. And that's a trend that we see that now this is the priority channel for every brand. And from a consumer standpoint, I think the ease of or the comfort of buying from a D2C platform, which may not be a marketplace, that has become very prominent. So consumers show a great amount of comfort in buying directly from the brands, from their channel. That's a prominent trend that we see.
Great. Thanks, Amit. Abhirup, you are working primarily with digital first brands. So you would actually be very close to what D2C brands are thinking. What is one trend that has stood out for you in this whole euphoria around D2C?
So it's not a trend, but it's more of a discovery for me personally, because I came from the VC world. I was investing as a venture capital investor in startups. And what I was pleasantly surprised by was that a lot of bootstrap brands are getting built in India, which are being built profitably, right? So it's a lot of brands which are close to profitability. And there are thousands of them already. And we believe that, access to financing is a requirement for all of them. In fact, across the brands that we speak with, 70% of them cite lack of access to funds as the biggest constraint for their growth. But that is increasingly getting solved with a bunch of awareness building around the new ways of financing. And we also hope to play a role in that. But the key discovery for me was that a lot of brands will be bootstrapped and will be built profitably in India.
That's a very interesting thought. I think you're right. We are seeing a lot of funding happening, but there are many more who are actually wanting to build boots in a bootstrap way. And I think you're playing a critical role there in ensuring they are able to grow on their own terms.
Correct.
Wait, Swarndeep, coming to you. You work with a lot of retailers, a lot of brands already, and we've seen a lot of offline brands now wanting to go D2C. Are you seeing from the retail ecosystem, and since the walk-ins are now not as much as it used to be pre-COVID era, what is the trend that you're seeing in the mindset shift or a D2C trend that you are seeing from your vantage point?
As I think I feel the same the way Amit told. So like earlier, it was not the priority. Whenever they say like e-commerce, yes, we'll do the e-commerce, but again, it is not the priority for them. But now it is the priority. After the COVID, everybody jumped on the e-commerce. I'll share some numbers also later. Say like how the people grow, right? I think day before yesterday, I think there was an article also. Like these companies like Reliance, these are the big retailers, Reliance or it's Aditya Birla or the D-Mart. They have grown, say like 2-fold to 9-folds, right? And the say like whether the transactions or the revenue wise, right? So there is a lot of scope in D2C. It is a big, see like it is a big shift. Like I have seen the eras where mom and pop stores to the EBOs to the LFS, then the e-commerce, then the marketplace, these kind of. Now we are seeing the shift to D2C. All right. So it's exciting. Like I think we are going to see a new era, see a new type of a business, new type of partnerships between the companies and retailers.
Thanks, Swarndeep. Madhavan, coming to you, as I mentioned, I think a lot of these D2C brands are also, some of them have already started exploring global geographies. What is the trend that you're seeing in terms of D2C brands going global? Are you seeing more and more brands doing there? And what are some of the specific challenges that you see actually brands encountering when they want to sell globally?
Got it. So first and foremost, Kapil, when it comes to India and taking a background on the cross-border ecosystem, India is among the top 5 to 7 cross-border business sources and destinations globally. Now, there was a UN report that was published very recently, 1 week back. This was on the global trade facilitation, and where each country is given scores on 58 parameters. related to global trade. India's scores have increased from 78% to 90% in the last 2 years. Now that's absolute numbers. We don't know if it's good or bad. But in terms of the scores alone, if you compare it, this is higher than many OECD and European Union countries. It's among the highest in Southeast Asia as well. So with this as a background, if you really think of MSMEs more before COVID, they were not prone to accepting technology as high as most of the enterprises or big companies did. But suddenly, we see many of the MSMEs, many of our customers in that segment asking questions like, can I have a simple CRM? Can I have a cloud-based invoicing tool? Can I go beyond getting the orders on WhatsApp, etc.? So along with this entire impetus on Atmanirbharta and all of this, self-reliance has increased, and that has become a big priority. With all of these tailwinds and behavioral changes considered into it, the trends that we see, especially basis what our customers have showcased, one is growth is coming from tier 2 and tier 3 towns and cities. Sourcing criteria are being redefined. No longer the top exporters, especially in D2C, are from the big cities alone. They have the people from tier 2, 3 towns have the infra, have the support system, and leverage technology to have a level playing field. The other thing is the ones who are offering a curated and unique offerings are leading the pack. The third is something which to some extent Abhirup and Swarnadeep ji already covered, is the support systems. Any MSME who is new has support right from an invoicing solution to a logistics service provider to a warehousing solution to a return management, end-to-end management of e-commerce business and reaching out to global audience today is very, very simple. And lastly, and again, it's a post-pandemic thing, but there are newer categories of e-commerce exports which are coming up, which are redefining the conventional categories which we are used to, like home decor, home furnishing, etc., or the conventional ones. We are seeing an emergence in newer categories like work from home equipments, like furniture, like toys, like consumables, and health and wellness products, etc. So, and lastly, it is the last trend that we see is on the payments front. Integration and adoption of everything from an API to UPI. So these are the top 4 to 5 trends that we are seeing, especially from India, showcased in terms of reaching to a global audience in the D2C space.
Sure, thanks, Madhav. Amit, coming to you, today when an entrepreneur, actually, sorry, before I take the question, there are a lot of requests from people to switch to English. I just want to also highlight, I think we ran a poll in which majority of the people have actually mentioned to continue in English. So we will continue in English. Maybe in between we may do a bit of an English, but it will be predominantly English because that's the majority of the poll. Coming to you, Amit, you work, like I mentioned, you work with a lot of brands. So for somebody, a D2C founder who wants to scale up the brand, you obviously help them a lot in scaling up. One, how do they decide which partner to choose? What benefits does ANS Commerce get to them? And secondly, what is the ROI that they can see when they collaborate with somebody like ANS Commerce, in terms of, you could maybe give numbers from examples that you worked with, if you could share some insights on that.
Sure.
And please be specific, because I think that will really help our audience.
Sure. So I think determining what kind of partners to work with, I think there are, I always framework into 3 important aspects. One is somebody who has off the platform. When I say platform, that's a shopping site, brand store, off the platform expertise, on platform expertise, and merchandising or the category expertise. Now, all 3 are important if you have to build a business, if you have to scale the channel, and you cannot scale it with one aspect. So first, off the platform, that's where the expertise lie on the depth at which you have handled various media channels, your understanding about what works, what doesn't work, your expertise of getting the traffic or the sessions at the cheapest price, which converts, and how to play around different aspect of deployment of media, which is suitable for your kind of product. That's pretty important. Then if you talk about on platform, the aspects around how do you maximize conversion, because that's one of the very important growth lever. You can do fantastic job of managing the media, getting people on the platform, but if you're not able to convert them either in a top of funnel, which is a first time customer buying on the first interaction with your product, or a customer who would have taken couple of frequencies to come back and purchase from you, how do you optimize your platform in order to make that customer into a consumer, into your purchaser? That's very important. And then the third aspect is which is more on the category aspect of it. What products to show them? How do you drive your average order value, which is again a very, very important aspect of growth lever in a D2C. For a D2C to be sustainable, profitable, as Abhirup was mentioning, that it's going to be very important to see which D2Cs become profitable, grow profitably over a period of time. And average order value is very important when it comes to that. How do you grow your average order values in a manner which is more organic, which translates to the consumer need, and not inorganic means of just fitting it or pushing it on consumer space? I think bundling these three expertise and knowing a partner which collaborates with you on all these three is pretty important. From an ANS standpoint, we partner with about 70 odd brands when it comes to managing their scale on D2C. As of today, we across these 70 odd brands we manage on our platform. So we have a platform called Cartify, where we have which is built for Indian context, built for performance marketing, and on that platform we manage about 20 million sessions on a monthly basis, and this translates to more closer to 30 crores of GMV for direct to consumer brands. This is not scale on marketplaces. This is scale on direct to consumer brands, and depending upon the journey of a D2C brand, whether they are a new brand starting up a D2C journey, or a brand which is into the second year, third year of a D2C journey, or an established brand in a growing phase of the D2C journey, we have different case studies that we have covered. We have worked with fashion brands where we have scaled their direct to consumer business from contributing less than 5% of their online business to now being 30-35% of their online business, and hitting 100 crore plus ARR on their direct to consumer business at a returns of upwards of 1:8, 1:9. In some cases, we have case studies where we have delivered returns above 1:13, 14 as well. Now, how do you achieve this? I mean, if you are a D2C brand and you ask this question, can I get 1:10? Can I get 1:, should I be okay with 1:3? I think there's a framework you need to set for yourself, and that framework needs to have elements of cost of acquiring the customer, which in turn is at what price you are getting the customers on your platform, which converts. I mean, getting a customer is fairly easy if you're not benchmarking against the conversion, but getting the customer which converts, what conversion rate, and that conversion rate will evolve over a period of time as you understand your consumers better. What average order value that you are delivering, that is going to determine your returns. So if you're acquiring customer at X price, if your average order value goes double, then your returns are also doubling. And also importantly, how you're optimizing the conversion rate. So of the consumer that you're getting on the platform, how many of those are converting, which will determine what multiple of your returns you can expect from the customers that you're getting on the platform. And lastly, what is also more important is how you are retaining your customer, which determines your organic traffic that you're building or the repeat customer rate you're building. And it is very important for you to build your repeat customers with the help of the experience that you're providing post purchase. Are you delivering them at the right time? Are you making sure that the supply chain is making it a wow experience, just like they would buy it from a Myntra or an Amazon or a Flipkart? And what kind of feedback they are giving you once they have got your product? If you're not focusing on that, then you would always be in a game of acquiring new customers. You will never be in a place where you are retaining these customers and sort of building a channel. So yeah, that's broadly the framework that we have.
Sure. Thanks, Amit. Madhavan, coming to you, for somebody like Payoneer is obviously working with so many merchants already. What is the benefit that a merchant sees when they're working with Payoneer, and how does someone take a decision on choosing Payoneer over others?
I'll limit this to a D2C context. I'm assuming you are thinking on those lines. So how we generally go about things is we marry to the customer's problems. And if you talk about a D2C customer's business model, there are 4 pillars to that success. One is sourcing. The second is gaining market access. The third is discoverability. And the fourth is regulatory. Let's talk of each of these. From a sourcing standpoint, where a D2C brand or MSME operating in this space can succeed is by getting the lowest possible cost and reducing layers between the source and the final customer. It's very critical for them to work with the right set of vendors, partners, and who all are committed to building the success story with that brand. With respect to Payoneers, where we play a role with respect to the sourcing, with respect to reducing the prices, we are very proud in terms of offering a very transparent and a value-centric costing to how we charge and how we manage the global payments. Customers love us for the network that we've built for them. And as a result, what this ends up doing is this ends up putting more money in the hands of businesses. Moving to getting market level access, MSMEs have very strong hold on that product, on that sourcing, manufacturing, etc. They know the product better than anyone else does. But when it comes to having information about the market, global markets, customers, their preferences, upcoming trends, etc., is where they are to some extent constrained, and which is where we as Payoneer again see a role in enabling them to with an ease to expand globally. So for instance, many of our customers love us for one of our Green Channel programs. What it does is, it recognizes, it identifies a top seller, say in France, and there are ways in which we can mirror that success to another geography, say a Germany or a Latin America or Australia, etc. So it is their ability to access newer markets, and which is open for business across all sizes, is what again Payoneer enables many customers. Discoverability has been discussed partially. I'll not repeat it, but it is
any specific insights on metrics they have seen, some 1 or 2 metrics that they have seen improvement in when they're maybe using Payoneer.
These metrics are very simple, Kapil, in terms of the total volumes that get processed. And of course, from Payoneer side, we are among the most cost-friendly options in terms of receiving the global payments which are available to them across all the other options available. So we have seen many of our customers in a short period of 2 to 3 quarters expanding their business to a tune of 40 to 60%. This is the overall turnover, purely by expanding, having the same product, but making it available to a wider set of markets and being open to a wider set of customers. And the last part is regulatory. So while there are, as a country, we have become very friendly in terms of regulatory in recent times. But that said, there are still a lot of areas to improve upon. We still have legacy policies, legacy procedures to deal with. And again, Payoneer on this front recognizes this and has simplified many of our customers' pain points in terms of getting an automated FIRCs. We've seen them chasing the banks to receive the FIRCs on incoming transactions for days and weeks and running from pillars to post. We have automated that field completely. So these are aspects, basis and working customer backwards that we have identified, and we've solved over and above offering a very reliable, secure, fast, and a cost-friendly payment option.
Thanks, Madhavan. Abhirup, coming to you, you obviously have a very attractive proposition for any D2C brand who want to work in a bootstrap manner, and you do revenue-based financing. you obviously would have had a lot of impact on D2C brands that you're working with. Can you maybe share a case study where the impact that actually the kind of growth that they were able to see and the benefits that Velocity, association with Velocity could bring to them?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll take the example of a personal care brand. It's a Delhi-based brand which is creating its own branded personal care products. And before taking money from Velocity, they were doing like 50, 60 lakhs of monthly revenue. And the way that cycle worked was that they would make some profits, make some incremental cash flows, and keep on plowing that back into the business, like a lot of bootstrap businesses do, right? And that would put a constraint on how fast they can scale, because to scale the brand, they would need money for inventory, they would need money for marketing. But they were obviously bootstrapped, they were deploying their own capital. And even though there was market demand, even though there was a big growth potential, they were not really able to capture that. We understood that, we understood the cash flow cycles, we understood the marketing cycles, and we initially provided them 50 lakhs of capital, which they plowed directly into their inventory. They introduced a bunch of new products. And that, by the way, over a span of the next 4 or 5 months, it increased their top line by 1.7 times. So it was like a 70% growth within 4 months that the brand saw, because that was clearly the constraint for the brand, right? And we were able to address that constraint in a very, very flexible and fast kind of a way. After paying us back, they've come back to us again. And we also keep on scaling our financing in line with their revenues. So after this, the revenues have crossed 1 crore, and we have extended the financing of 1 crore now. So the way we see our role is that we may not be able to join hands very early. In the early phase, brands are trying to figure out the marketing cycles, the inventory cycles, etc. But once they have figured out those cycles, we can be very, very efficient in allowing them to scale it. We can pump in more capital, and we can partner with the brands to keep on scaling their top line. And as they keep on growing their top line, we also keep on increasing the kind of financing we have to offer to basically become a long-term growth partner for the brands that we work with. And I think that's a story that we have seen across multiple types of brands. To just tee that up with another case study in which things did not work out as planned. And I think it's important to talk about that also, because I think the product that we have is very, very flexible. So we worked with a stationery brand, and that brand saw a dip in revenue during lockdowns. And a typical financier would expect you to pay back a fixed monthly EMI in that month. But because of lockdown, the revenues had fallen. And the way our product is designed is that we only take a fixed revenue share. So if the top line falls, their payback automatically falls in line with that. And that led to a big incremental support for the brand, right? Because our philosophy is that if the brand is not getting cash flows, then we also don't need to take our money back. If the brand is growing, then we'll only keep taking a fixed percentage of revenue. And I think that model just makes it very, very flexible for the brands that we work with. So those are basically two stories on both sides, right? Yeah.
Sure. Very helpful, Abhiru. Thanks. Swandeep ji, coming to you. I think the way a point of sale or a ERP operates in a post-pandemic world has fundamentally shifted, like as it happened with the consumer preferences. Now it's the era where a store is being operated like a fulfillment center. There are dark stores coming up. So there is increased complexity where the store staff has to probably cater to website orders as brands are going the D2C route. How, like, in what ways have you seen from your vantage point that in what ways, if you could maybe share a case study of a D2C brand where Logic has actually helped them enable them to in this post-pandemic world where they're actually using stores as fulfillment centers or set up dark stores?
Right. I'll share you with some case studies. So according to me, say earlier people talking about D2C. Whenever we talk about D2C, mainly things comes in our mind that brands or the companies are going to be competitive to the retailers. But according to me, the partnership between a retailer and D2C opens a new horizon for brands to elevate customer experience. How the brand will bring orders and store will play a role of fulfillment centers or the dark stores, because consumer expects a next day delivery of their orders, which is only possible through the retailers or nearby retailers. It reduces the cost of sales and returns. You can well imagine cost of delivering goods. For example, you have your warehouse in Bangalore and you are delivering to Jammu, which is approximately 1800 or 2000 kilometers, and returning from Jammu to Bangalore, it is again a big pain for the company. If both the processes done by the retailer, a local retailer, it expedite both shipping and returns. As see, like any brand, if it goes D2C with your diverse digital product catalog, from the day one you are available into the 4,000 cities and towns of India. And moreover, say, like, according to the why the brand should go to the D2C, it's a one survey has been done where the consumer wants to buy directly from the manufacturer or the company. And moreover, you get the first-hand data information, which is not possible whenever you are selling through the marketplaces like Amazon, Flipkart, Myntra, etc. I'll share with you. It's one of my clients. It's Iconic. They started last year after the COVID-19. So like they immediately built their site and etc. And they are growing 7 to 8% month on month, right? And that is in fashion. Then I have my client. It's a color bar. So in the year 2020, D2C sales are grown by 40% as compared to 2019. Now listen carefully. This case study, Red Keef, this year, first quarter compared to last year first quarter has grown more than 6-folds. Big one. Right? So it's very interesting, and we have given our solution for the hyper local, say like it's one, say like somebody have the Red Tape, have the 300 store. They have the capability to serve any order from any store, whichever is the nearest to the stores, right? And these are companies, and they are searching these kind of solutions, and we are ready for this one.
Great, thank you so much, Sonandiji. It's also interesting to note all of these are also common customers between both Logic and Unicommerce, so it's always good to see them growing. Coming to you, Amit, I think we are getting this question from the audience as well, and I think for any brand who's wanting to become D2C, I think that's the biggest question in their head, whether they should go to marketplaces or website. I know you help with both, but how do you help the brand owner make that decision?
Yeah, so I think it boils down to the bandwidth which is available. If the bandwidth is not a constraint and you can afford to focus on both, so the answer is both. You can't avoid marketplaces because that's a faster way to reach to larger audiences. But if you have to prioritize between the one over the two, it depends upon what kind of product and what kind of brand that you are trying to make. If you're somebody whose forte is a good quality product at a competitive price point, and that's the strength that which you're going for, probably marketplaces would be a faster way to build a scale before you start building your own channel, because then you're not afraid of being compared to other brands. Then your scale that you can achieve is faster over marketplaces. While on the other hand, if you are a brand with a very distinguished product features, with a very unique proposition, and you want the consumer to know about the proposition before making a purchase, and that can only be given in an environment where you are giving experience to the end consumer, then going by direct to consumer, your own portal is the best way to go, because then you can make the consumer aware about your product before they make the first purchase.
Okay, very helpful, Amit. Coming to you, Abhiroop. So how do you like, for all the D2C brands out there, do you think revenue-based financing actually makes sense for everyone? Or if not, then how do you determine who, like at what stage, one, they should be taking revenue-based financing, and two, like, is there a specific category? Is there a specific scale that they should look at?
Sure. Great question, Kapil. Thanks for asking that. So see, as I mentioned earlier, we believe that the concept of revenue-based financing will obviously require revenue history to be there. So we may not be able to work with brands which are just getting started, which are in the product development kind of a phase. But after brands have 6 to 12 months of revenue history, we would definitely like to talk to them. In terms of what we look for, we definitely prefer working with brands which are building a fundamentally viable and profitable business, right? So in many ways, it's the anti-VC kind of a thesis. We, in fact, don't work with brands which are burning a lot of money to grow. We like to work with brands which are building a sustainable business in which they know that for every dollar which is being spent in marketing, what's the kind of top line and what's the kind of gross margin they're generating. And that's the key criteria of what we look for, right? So it has to be a fundamentally viable business with good gross margin and efficient marketing. And we need at least 6 months of revenue history. In terms of the minimum scale, we are okay with brands which are doing even like 5-6 lakhs of monthly revenue. And at the upper end, we do work with a few brands which are doing 5-6 crores of monthly revenue also. So it is like fairly broadly applicable. Less than 5 lakhs become too early for us typically. And I think that's where we have drawn the line. But literally there is no upper limit of how large can the brand be. Because we in our model are even right now able to extend capital up to 2 crores, which is pretty sizable for the brands to invest in their marketing and invest in their working capital. And I think that's the kind of brands that we look for, Kapil.
Thanks, Abhirup. That's helpful. Madhavan, question for you. We have noticed from our data as well that it's the Bharat consumer which is actually showing a lot of growth. We are seeing growth in tier 2, tier 3 towns now, 100% plus growth, much higher than what we're seeing in tier 1. And correspondingly, we are seeing a lot of merchants also coming up in these. Like just to share some statistics earlier, we were getting probably 30% of inquiries from tier 2, tier 3 towns. Now 70% inquiries. It's completely reversed in terms of the trend. I'm sure Payoneer also works with a lot of such merchants. What are you seeing in terms of the overall ecosystem? Has it matured? What are specific challenges that sellers from these regions particularly face, and how does Payoneer solve for that?
Right. Kapil, you covered the answer in your question as well. Itself, it's Bharat which is driving the growth. The growth for us in terms of large and successful e-commerce D2C brands finding success and selling to global customers is coming from tier 2, 3 towns. Let me share some data points that underscores shift in this trend. Post-pandemic, there was the national averages of recovery of business and growth in online export was to a tune of 20%. This is a pan-India level data point. But there have been many unlikely heroes who are driving this growth upwards to a scale of 40%, 50%, etc. So for instance, there are clusters that we saw in Rajasthan. This includes the likes of Jodhpur, Udaipur, that saw over a 50% growth over post-pandemic versus pre-pandemic. There are clusters in Tamil Nadu. For instance, the entire Erode-Tirupur belt that saw a similar growth of 40 to 50% as well. Punjab, for instance, there are seller clusters in Mohali, Amritsar, and Chandigarh that again saw higher than national averages. So how we come to know this, not only through our interactions or closely working with the sellers, but we also at Payoneer, we have this property which we call as Seller Express, where we frequently conduct webinars in key export clusters in parts of India. These are category focused as well. And the theme is around educating them on cross-border commerce, where all these success cases clearly come up. Our learnings, therefore, having been a part of that success story are supply chains are getting redefined. Not only are they coming from smaller towns, the source, the top exporters, but they don't limit themselves to conventional categories these days. There are wooden toys from Chennapatna who are finding a lot of success in finding a global audience these days. That's learning number one. So categories and supply chains are getting redefined. Even when it comes to categories, I've covered it earlier as well, that there are newer categories like toys, furniture, supplements, which a few years back, none of us could think of India being a strong export hub, especially from tier 2, 3 towns. Bharat, as you rightly said, that's the second learning. The third learning is tech adoption from this this cohort of customers is seeing a never before growth. Never before have we seen their reliance on a cloud-based invoicing software, their preference for opting for open banking. Businesses are being more virtual. They are closing more deals virtually than ever before. That's the learning three. And lastly, customers are also ready to experiment more than ever before. UPIs to a great extent have transformed this. So these are the Uber level learnings and insights that we have seen change as a post-pandemic coming from Bharat.
Sure. Thanks, Madhav. Swarndeep Ji, one final question to you before I switch to the audience question answer. There have actually been a lot of questions that have come in. In this time and era, while you've given great examples of Iconic and others, Color Bar, etc., who've shown and Red Chief who've shown phenomenal growth, are brands viewing D2C as a competitor to offline retail? Do you see that mindset still? And if yes, how should brands be working towards making sure that becomes a seamless channel? And how is Logic enabling that today? You're on mute, Swarndeep Ji.
Sorry. Kapil, as earlier, I have already told you that according to me, it's in the coming years. It's right now. It's not adopting people, but in the coming within a year or 2 years, this, whether it is a FMCG or it's a fashion, right? Retailers and companies are gelled together. They'll be working like allies, not like as a competitors, right? The companies, the brands will bring the orders and they'll fulfill it, right? And this is how, it's why, see what actually require for this one, right? This is, you need in a place of your enterprise order management, because daily, see in the enterprise order management, when you have online presence, maybe it is D2C or marketplace or EP or distribution, right? All of these go smoothly and as efficiently as possible. You need to have your enterprise order management in place with which gives you a 360-degree visibility, right? If we take some examples, some of footwear brands like Red Tape, Red Chief, these are people are having approximately, sometimes they are crossing more than 10,000 orders a day, right? To handling like these thousands of orders in a single day, it's not possible without your good, reliable enterprise order management. When you are handling thousands of orders in a single day, your customer demands a next day delivery. Every second counts, from receiving an order to shipping it from the warehouse. This is only possible if the warehouse workers have access information on their palms. And this, like I'll say, it's again, it's your WMS module should be very, very robust and reliable. If the warehouse worker is given a simple instruction for from which rack, from which shelf, from which bin, etc., to get this item to fulfill the order, it increases the speed of employee by 6 to 7 times at least, right? So these kind of things require it. So where like you can handle this kind of, because when you are going to be say like the omnipresent, na, all the 4,000 cities of India, then you require your tools in a place. So like the kind of a future is there, you need your tools should be ready.
I'll just quickly add to what Swarndeep ji is saying. So I think the boundaries between online and offline, they're disappearing very fast, and it's a huge ecosystem which is evolving, and the way you run businesses or way you interact with your consumer requires a very integrated approach. Be it a consumer buying online, picking from stores, or buying in from a tablet inside a store and getting it at home, or probably buying from a store and then interacting online to learn more about it, or register for a particular post-sale service. Depending upon the product category, depending upon the use case, brands have to be keep up the pace with which the new tools, new technologies that are evolving, which is very, very essential to not just reach out to the consumer for sale, but also reach out to him to give him your brand experience at every touch point they are present at. So this entire online offline integration, omni, hyperlocal, whatever you call it, it is very important for brands to keep an eye on both when they decide their growth journeys.
100% agree. 100%. You are absolutely right.
Great. I think that leads us to the audience question and answer. I think a very similar question, and for this, I think बहुत demand आ रही थी, so I'm going to switch to English now for the audience Q&A. So Amit, the first question is for you. I think आज की डेट में brands, consumers Flipkart, Amazon पे भी shop कर रहे हैं, website पे भी shop कर रहे हैं. For a brand, what do they need to do separately? And I think Amay has asked this. What do they need to do separately so that the customers website पे आए rather than going to Amazon? Because Amazon उनको wider assortment दिखा रहा है, उनको comparison दिखा रहा है, reviews दिखा रहा है. Why will a brand come to a D2C website?
So, I mean, my answer to that is you can't control where a consumer can go. आपको consumer को अपनी site पे लाना है और आपको Amazon के साथ compete करना है, तो आपको Amazon जैसे ही फीचर्स और एक्सपीरियंस अपनी साइट पर देना पड़ेगा. अगर आप अपने चैनल को उतना ही अमेजिंग और उतने फीचर रिच बना सकते हैं, तो कस्टमर के पास चॉइस होगी कि वो Amazon से खरीदे या आपसे खरीदे. और जैसे ऑफलाइन स्पेस में हमारे पास EBOs हैं, एक्सक्लूसिव ब्रांड आउटलेट्स, और MBOs हैं, मल्टी ब्रांड आउटलेट्स, लाइक योर शॉपर स्टॉप, पैंटालून्स एक्सेट्रा. वहां पे कस्टमर के पास चॉइस होती है. जो कस्टमर ब्रांड लॉयल होता है या जिसको एग्जैक्टली पता है कि मुझे इसी ब्रांड का ये पर्टिकुलर प्रोडक्ट लेना है, तो वो EBO में जाना प्रेफर करता है, बिकॉज उसका माइंड बहुत क्लियर होता है कि उसको कुछ और नहीं चाहिए, उसको इधर से ही चूज करना है, और उसका लॉयल्टी उस ब्रांड के साथ काफी स्ट्रांग होता है. जबकि जो ब्रांड जिसको क्लियर नहीं है उसको क्या चाहिए, वो प्रोबेबली एक MBO के पास जाएगा, जहां पर वो बोलेगा मैं चॉइसेस देखता हूँ और फिर डिसाइड करूंगा. तो वो कंज्यूमर के केस टू केस बेस पे वेरी करता है. और मुझे लगता है कि ब्रांड्स को कभी भी compete नहीं करना चाहिए, उनको अपने चैनल के ऊपर फोकस करना चाहिए और देखना चाहिए कि उसको कंज्यूमर के एक्सपीरियंस से कैसे बेटर कर सकते हैं.
Sure. Thanks, Amit. Very helpful. Madhavan, next question for you. I think one of the attendees wanted to understand कि उनको global जाना है, and उनको Amazon के ecosystem से बाहर global का. I think we are trying to see this parallel universe being created. तो वो उनको global बेचना है और outside of Amazon बेचना है, उनके पास क्या avenues है? Payoneer उनको कैसे help कर सकता है?
Right. So बहुत सारे avenues है इस front में. So for instance, the easiest way to do this is Shopify से आपको पूरा access मिल जाता है आपको एक वेबसाइट बनाने को, and you can work backwards. आपको सारे support systems in terms of payments, in terms of listing, सारे support मिल जाते हैं. And then there are multiple other options which are available too. In terms of Payoneer, हमारा support कहाँ पे extend होता है? Payoneer is a payments platform. So आपका जो payment integrate होता है, so for instance Shopify से आप US facing platform बना दोगे, US facing website बना दोगे, and आप अपने सारे marketing channels use करोगे to drive segment of customers to your website. और उसके बाद जो भी आपके payments accrue होते हैं, so Payoneer is integrated with many payment gateways like 2Checkout, etc. So 2Checkout will take care of collecting the payments from the customer, और Payoneer एक हफ्ते में जो पेमेंट्स एक्रू होते हैं वो कंसोलिडेट करके आपके बैंक अकाउंट में इंडियन रुपीस में ट्रांसफर कर देगा, फॉलोड विद सारे FIRCs इन अ वेरी लेजिटिमेट मैनर. सो एवेन्यूज बहुत सारे हैं, एंड द बेस्ट वन दैट आई विल रिकमेंड इज Shopify. एंड आप पेमेंट गेटवे टू चेकआउट और बहुत सारे पेमेंट गेटवे ऑप्शन है वो यूज कर सकते हो एंड इंटीग्रेट देम विद पेयोनियर, ताकि यूएस डॉलर में आप सेल करोगे, यहाँ पे आपके इंडियन बैंक अकाउंट में इंडियन रुपीज में पैसे जमा हो जाएंगे।
Thanks, Madhavan. Abhirup, I notice you are patiently answering all the queries offline. Thanks for that. I think next question is for you. I think बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो बहुत niche categories में operate कर रहे हैं, Ayurvedic products या all those. उसमें क्या like उनको marketing में invest करना है, उनको brand building में invest करना है. Obviously, one of the key benefits of tying up with Velocity is कि वो सब एक वो freedom मिलती है उनको.
Correct.
पहली बात, do you work with such niche categories and have you seen some benefits on working with these niche categories और वो in brand building करके अपना growth कर पाए? Any examples or case studies that you have in these?
यार मेरे ख्याल से niche categories is the way to go in DTC. मतलब क्योंकि otherwise competition इतना ज़्यादा हो जाता है that you would be just paying money to Google and Facebook for growing a customer base, right? So it's important in my opinion to pick a niche category and build a really solid proposition for them in terms of आपका product, आपका जो communication है, आपका packaging है, end to end. If you're talking to that niche customer base, that's a good way to start your brand. एक बार उसमें आपका presence बन जाए, उसके बाद you can obviously keep on expanding that. But शुरुआत के लिए it's much better to pick a niche and become a very clear brand in that space instead of trying to become everything for everyone. And I think that's what we recommend a lot of brands that we work with. And अभी मतलब हमारी scale पे भी मतलब we do work with a lot of niche brands जो कि महीने का 10 लाख रुपए का 15 लाख रुपए का revenue कर रहे होंगे. And it's possible that they have picked up one niche. Let's say मतलब moms is one niche that a lot of brands want to target, right? तो उसमें मतलब based upon the stage of their pregnancy you can target them. And if you are building something for that particular segment, it becomes a very differentiated proposition for them. कि मतलब अगर ऐसा कोई customer है who is actually in that stage of life and they see your ad which is talking about that, it would be a direct connect, right? So to answer your question, we definitely like to work with niche brands and we support them across their growth capital needs. To just add to it, हमारे support वाले में we also work with a bunch of partners, right? And I think a bunch of you on this panel are already Velocity partners. Thanks for that. But the idea is that मतलब we are trying to create a D2C stack. कि यार किसी को भी D2C business करना हो, it's a plug and play solution for them. आपको Velocity से capital मिलेगा, and then through our partners you can access a bunch of services across marketing, across warehousing, across order management, and a bunch of other things, right? And I think that way we are creating an ecosystem for these brands to just focus on their business, focus on delighting their customers, and then not worry about a lot of other aspects which we can take care of. That's it.
Thanks, Abhirup. Swarndeep ji, हमने offline brands को देखा है online जाते हुए. I think there is a question from Priya, I think, sorry, Navya, that हम लोग भी online बेच रहे हैं, वहाँ पे ठीक ठाक sale है, but हमें offline business expand करना है और वहाँ पे हमें distributor चाहिए या visibility बढ़ानी है. उसमें any thoughts कि कैसे इनको अपनी offline presence कैसे बना सकते हैं? Sorry, you're on mute again, Swarndeep ji.
Sorry, once again. इनका business क्या है? Like, is it in a fashion or is it into FMCG?
इन्होंने बताया तो नहीं, आप fashion के हिसाब से बता दीजिए, because fashion पे एक और question था कि वो fashion में भी कौन सी categories हैं जहाँ पे Omni actually ज़्यादा work करता है?
Fashion में जी Omni जो work करता है, like whether मेरे पास whether we talk about the garments, whether we talk about the footwear, everybody is doing fine, right? And they have a fantastic sales. चाहे वो marketplace है, D2C का अब trend चालू हुआ. If we talk about the Europe and America, तो वहाँ तो approximately 7-8 साल तो successfully running हो चुके हैं, जो कि हमारे अब जो trend अब चालू हो रहा है. और if you are successfully running from say like आपका online में market में acceptability है और वो acceptability अगर आप show करते हो कि आपके products हैं, तो then you can talk about the distributors place आपका अगर करेंगे में जो भी इनका area है, अगर ये FMCG में है अगर, तो सबसे पहले आप अपने 50 to 100 किलोमीटर के रेडियस को सिर्फ कवर करें इनिशियली, क्योंकि डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सप्लाई चेन मैनेजमेंट इसमें FMCG में इनके लिए बड़ी डिफिकल्ट आएगी. 100 किलोमीटर का रेडियस जो है, 50 किलोमीटर के रेडियस, देन आफ्टर 6 months to 8 months वो सक्सेसफुल हो जाता है तो धीरे धीरे डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स अपने आप इंक्रीज होने चालू हो जाएंगे, क्योंकि इनका अपना नेटवर्क बहुत बढ़िया है। सी एनी कंपनी पर्टिकुलरली आप एक एरिया में करते हो तो उसका डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर ऑलरेडी पूरे स्टेट्स में सबको जानता होता है एंड ही कैन वाउच फॉर यू कि हाँ ये मेरे पास मेरा ये बिजनेस इससे ठीक आ रहा है, यू कैन ऑल्सो गिव देम अ चांस इन योर एरिया। तो ये बहुत बढ़िया है इसका लाइक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन नेटवर्क के साथ मेरा एक्सपीरियंस अप्रोक्सीमेटली एफएमसीजी वालों के साथ 25 साल पुराना है, 25-26 साल का। तो कोई भी कंपनी आती है अगर इफ दे हैव अ गुड प्रोडक्ट गुड मार्केटिंग तो उसको सभी डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स लेना चाहते हैं, उसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है।
Thanks, Vandit ji. That's helpful. Amit, question for you. Rajiv has asked कि वो लोग भी Amazon marketing कर रहे हैं, वहाँ पे ROS is 5.46%, which he feels is fine. But they also feel that the market for their product is huge. उनके पास already website है, तो अब like what are the levers that they can employ कि वो जो customer base है उनकी product की reception अच्छी है, how can they increase the reach of this brand online?
तो जनरली ब्रांड जो ऑलरेडी एक ऑनलाइन जर्नी पे रहता है, हम उनको सजेस्ट करते हैं कि आप एक बार अपना एक ऑडिट करवा लीजिए। उस ऑडिट में एक प्लेटफॉर्म ऑडिट होता है जिसमें कि क्या आपका प्लेटफॉर्म रेडी है स्केल करने के लिए, क्योंकि आप सडनली आज मार्केटिंग करेंगे तो क्या आपका कंज्यूमर कन्वर्जन के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से कोई गैप्स तो नहीं है। दूसरा, जो भी आपने मार्केटिंग करी, अगर अमेजोन में आपने एक लर्निंग बिल्ड कर ली है एंड 5.46% 5.4 ROS अगर आप बोल रहे हैं तो काफी अच्छा ROS है। इसका मतलब कि उनका प्रोडक्ट और प्रोडक्ट मार्केट फिट टेस्टेड है। इसका मतलब उन्होंने उनका प्रोडक्ट के लिए कस्टमर्स हैं वहां पर। अभी वो देखना है कि उसको एक तो कौन सी कैटेगरी में है, क्या प्रोडक्ट है, तो उसके हिसाब से वो मार्केट साइज क्या है और उस मार्केट में प्रोमिनेंट कॉम्पिटिशंस क्या हैं, उनके हिसाब से आपका पोटेंशियल टू ग्रो कितना है, हम उसकी बेंचमार्किंग कर सकते हैं। और एक बार आपने बेंचमार्किंग कर ली तो आपको देखना पड़ेगा कितना पोटेंशियल ग्रोथ का है मार्केट प्लेसेस के ऊपर, उसके ऊपर हम स्ट्रेटजीज बना सकते हैं। जैसे कि क्या आप जो करंट कैंपेन्स रन कर रहे हैं उसमें आप लिमिट कर रहे हैं उसको खाली लोअर फनल्स को ऑप्टिमाइज करने के लिए। अगर ऐसा है तो शायद आपको इन्वेस्ट करने की जरूरत है अपर फनल्स में, ताकि एक लार्जर अवेयरनेस क्रिएट करी जाए आपके प्रोडक्ट के बारे में। दूसरा है कि अगर आप अपने चैनल के ऊपर कस्टमर लाना चाहते हैं तो उसके ऊपर आप क्या स्ट्रेटेजीज अपना सकते हैं। तो फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर आप FMCG ब्रांड है और आपको लोअर प्राइस पॉइंट्स पे आप ऑपरेट करते हैं, जैसे हमने बहुत सारे FMCG ब्रांड्स के साथ काम करा है जहाँ पे वो बोलते हैं कि हमारा 300-400 रुपए का प्रोडक्ट है जो शायद अपने साइट के ऊपर बेचना वायबल नहीं है, वहां पर बेचेंगे तो आप कभी भी रिटर्न्स नहीं ले पाएंगे। हम उनको बोलते हैं कि आप उसको अलग तरीके से यूज करिए। आप अगर आपका एक प्रोडक्ट है जिसको कंज्यूमर सैंपल करेगा, अगर टेस्ट करेगा या यूज कंज्यूम करेगा और उसके बाद वो आपका कंज्यूमर कंटिन्यूअसली बन सकता है, तो आप अपने डायरेक्ट टू कंज्यूमर चैनल को यूज करिए कस्टमर को वो फर्स्ट सैम्पलिंग एक्टिविटी करवाने के लिए, जिसमें आपकी एक्विजिशन कॉस्ट भी बहुत कम होगी और एट द सेम टाइम कंज्यूमर आपके प्रोडक्ट को एक्सपीरियंस कर पाएगा व्हाइल सिटिंग एट होम, जो टिपिकली ऑफलाइन में इनसाइड अ स्टोर सेल्स लोग ट्राई करते हैं। तो आई थिंक ये बहुत ही जनरल गाइडलाइंस है। बाकी एक अगर आप अच्छे पार्टनर के साथ अपना एक फुल फ्लेजेड डिस्कशन करेंगे तो उससे आपको अपना स्ट्रैटेजीज काफी क्लियर हो जाएगा किस डायरेक्शन में आपको जाना चाहिए।
Sure. Madhavan, question for you. Rajat has asked कि कितनी जल्दी इंटरनेशनल पेमेंट रिलीज हो जाता है, एंड I think the service that he's using उसमें भी 10 दिन लगते हैं. Is there a faster option that he can take from Payoneer?
Super, and it's a very relevant question because this is one of the pain points for our customers जो हम solve कर रहे हैं. So हमारे customers जो frequently काफी सारे मोड्स यूज करते हैं, कुछ बैंक्स यूज करते हैं, कुछ पेयोनियर यूज करते हैं, कुछ पार्टनर्स के लिए दूसरे सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स यूज करते हैं। सो उनके 2-3 कॉमन प्रॉब्लम्स होते हैं। एक है कि ट्रांसपेरेंसी नहीं होता प्राइसिंग में, दूसरा है कि देयर आर सम सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स जो 5-6% चार्ज करते हैं और इनका मार्जिन होता है 3 या 4% बेस्ट केस। सो जो मार्जिन होता है उससे ज्यादा दे एंड अप पेइंग टू रिसीव द मनी। और थर्ड होता है टाइमलीनेस, कभी कभी 7 days, 10 days, 15 दिन तक लग जाते हैं टू रिसीव, एंड ये बैंकिंग चैनल में ये काफी होता है because additional documents मांगा जाता है and all of that. In Payoneer's case, हमने ये काफी सारे problems simplify किए हैं. So with respect to transparency, हमारा सिर्फ एक प्राइस है, सिर्फ फॉरेक्स प्राइस लेते हैं, कोई लैंडिंग फी नहीं, कोई ट्रांजैक्शन फी नहीं, 4-5 कंपोनेंट्स नहीं होते हमारे प्राइसिंग के, सिर्फ एक ट्रांसपेरेंट सिंगल प्राइसिंग, दैट्स इट. The second thing is with respect to timeliness. हम बेस्ट केस, सो मान लीजिए यूएस में आपका कोई कस्टमर है, क्लाइंट है जिसने पे किया है, तो आपके सो Payoneer से आपका एक यूएस में लोकल बैंक अकाउंट खुल जाता है फर्स्ट सेंचुरी बैंक में. सो वो तो एक नाचा ट्रांजैक्शन होता है, नेफ्ट ट्रांजैक्शन की तरह होता है, और वो ट्रांजैक्शन इमीडिएटली रिफ्लेक्ट कर जाता है, कुछ घंटों में रिफ्लेक्ट कर जाता है. फिर वहां से हम ट्रिगर करते हैं बेसिस आरबीआई लॉस कि वो इंडियन बैंक अकाउंट में इंडियन रुपीज में कन्वर्ट होके आ जाए. टिपिकली 2 से 3 दिन में 80 to 90% ऑफ आवर कस्टमर्स उनके ट्रांजैक्शंस आ जाते हैं इस चीज में.
ठीक है माधवन, thanks, that's helpful. I think we just have 2 more minutes left. One question that has come across, सब कह रहे हैं कि इनको returns control करना है अमित, and I think this will be more relevant for you, especially fashion and even other categories also. Any things, 1 or 2 things that you've seen, best practices जहाँ से brands अपने returns actually कम कर सकते हैं, both RTOs and CIRs?
इसके 3 एस्पेक्ट हैं. पहला है कि परचेज से पहले आप कंज्यूमर को क्या एक्सपीरियंस दे सकते हैं ताकि वो डिसीजन सही ले. उसके लिए बहुत सारे टूल्स हैं. इनफैक्ट बिफोर स्टार्टिंग ANS Commerce, I started a company called Fitrati, which was a size and fit recommendation tool. एंड उसके एक्सपीरियंस से आज वो काफ़ी इवॉल्व स्पेस हो गया है. बहुत सारे लोग आ गए हैं जो अलग अलग तरीके से आपको अपना राइट साइज एंड फिट, चाहे वो आपकी प्रीवियस परचेजेस के हिसाब से रिकमेंडेशंस हो या आपके इमेज के थ्रू आपका मेजरमेंट्स निकालना. तो ऐसे बहुत सारी टेक्निक्स आ गई हैं जो डिफरेंट DTC ब्रांड्स अडॉप्ट करते हैं अपने साइट्स के ऊपर. और इवन मार्केट प्लेसेस पे अगर आप अमेजोन पे देखेंगे तो वो आपको बताता है कि व्हाट इज एक्सपेक्टेड साइज फॉर यू. तो कुछ इस तरह के एक्सपीरियंस आप बना सकते हैं कंज्यूमर को सही एक्सपीरियंस देने के लिए. दूसरा है इंफॉर्मेशन आप कितना डिटेल कर सकते हो. तो यूज ऑफ साइज चार्ट्स इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. उसके बाद दूसरा पार्ट है कि जब कंज्यूमर आपसे उसने साइज डिसाइड कर लिया है और आपसे ट्रांजैक्शन कर रहा है, उस टाइम पर कुछ रिटर्न्स रिड्यूस, कुछ एक काफी इंपॉर्टेंट एलिमेंट रिटर्न्स का होता है RTOs, रिटर्न टू ओरिजिन, जहाँ पे कंज्यूमर कैश ऑन डिलीवरी पे ऑर्डर खरीदता है और रिटर्न कर देता है बिफोर टेकिंग द प्रोडक्ट. तो जो मैंने पहला एग्जांपल दिया वो RTV रिड्यूस करता है कि कंज्यूमर को साइज गलत मिला. बट RTO रिड्यूस करने के लिए आप अपनी वेबसाइट्स के ऊपर कंज्यूमर्स चेक्स लगा सकते हैं. तो आज की डेट में बहुत सारे टूल्स अवेलेबल है जहाँ पे आप कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं कि कंज्यूमर की प्रीवियस हिस्ट्री क्या रही है रिटर्न्स की. और अगर वो बहुत रिटर्न्स करता है प्रोडक्ट तो आप उसको कैश ऑन डिलीवरी डिसेबल कर सकते हैं या उनको प्रीपेड ऑप्शन ही दे सकते हैं खाली, ताकि आपके RTOs रिड्यूस हो वहाँ पर. एंड थर्ड इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग इज टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट इज द रीजन फॉर योर रिटर्न्स. और उसके लिए मैंने देखा है कि बहुत सारे ब्रांड्स बोलते तो हैं कि हमें रिटर्न्स आ रहे हैं, बट उनके पास पिन पॉइंटेड आंसर नहीं होता कि कंज्यूमर रिटर्न कर रहा है क्योंकि प्रोडक्ट क्वालिटी खराब है, रिटर्न कर रहा है बिकॉज साइज इशू है, और रिटर्न कर रहा है बिकॉज आपके RTOs बहुत ज्यादा है. तो कैप्चरिंग रीजन फॉर रिटर्न and analyzing that to work on it is very very important. तो ये मेरा broad understanding है.
I've seen 2 more practical approaches of the companies that we work with जो कि returns कम करने में काफी effective रहे. तो मतलब एक तो अमित ने जो बात की in terms of understanding the root causes of that and then trying to fix them. But इसके beyond मतलब I think अगर आप prepaid पे थोड़ा discount दे दो and create like a natural incentive for people to go for prepaid over COD, that will have a significant impact. And second is कि COD में भी मतलब what people do is that COD के orders को एक simple बंदे को बैठा दिया और उसको बोला कि यार कॉल करके एक बार वेरीफाई कर लो कि यार ये genuine order है कि नहीं है. और अगर genuine order है, confirm करके लग रहा है कि ठीक है, only after that ship the order, otherwise order ship करने की जरूरत नहीं है, वहाँ पर फोन पर ही cancel कर दो. And I think these two have also been very effective in terms of reducing the total RTO and return rate.
Yeah, just to add to Abhirup, on the second point, हमने कार्टिफाई प्लेटफॉर्म के ऊपर एक छोटा सा फीचर डेवलप करा, उससे हमारा ओवरऑल RTO रेट 10% से ड्रॉप हो गया.
अच्छा,
कैश ऑन डिलीवरी के ऑर्डर पे हम OTP वेरीफाई करते हैं। तो अगर आप
Nice.
कैश ऑन डिलीवरी ऑर्डर कर रहे हैं तो OTP वेरीफाइड नहीं होगा तो आप ऑर्डर प्लेस ही नहीं कर सकते। तो
सही है।
उससे भी 10% RTO रेट वहीं कम हो गया। तो यू आर एब्सोल्युटली
Correct.
राइट कि these are the methods.
Correct.
Great. Thanks, everyone. I think it was a very, very enriching session. I hope the audience was able to get a lot of insights. I think I'll just request if all of you can share. I think there are a lot of requests कि वो आप लोगों को reach करना चाहते हैं, आपकी team को reach करना चाहते हैं. If you can either mention your email ID now or message it on the chat, I think that will be helpful so that people know where to reach out to all of you. Once again, thanks a lot for taking out time for the session today. I had a lot of fun and I was able to gain a lot of knowledge today, as I always look forward to in these sessions. Handing it over to you, Anubhav, for the next session.
Thank you, sir. So as Kapil sir rightly mentioned, it was definitely fun and at the same time knowledgeable. The best part about these I'll say these sessions is that obviously we get to hear these knowledge right from the domain experts. But this time we also brought in another thing that we brought someone right there who is in the trenches, like other D2C people in the attendees who's trying their luck in the D2C space. So we brought in Pallavi here from Super Bottoms, giving a brief about Super Bottoms. Super Bottoms are a major D2C player in India as well. So we wanted her to put her 2 cents here as well. For introducing her, I also have on the panel my very dear colleague Ankita. Ankita here is from our enterprise solution expert team. Hi Ankita.
Hi Anubhav.
I request you to take it over here, and the attendees are very much looking forward for insights on D2C brands from Pallavi.
Sure. Thank you, Anubhav. Hello, everyone. I'm Ankita. I am a enterprise sales consultant with Unicommerce. I'm here to introduce Super Bottoms, which is India's #1 brand of reusable diapers, which are screen-friendly, sustainable. Super Bottoms is a unique as it consists of a team with 90% mothers who themselves have been users of the brand and are extremely passionate about the mission of the brand, which is to revolutionize diapering in India. I would like to welcome Pallavi Utyagi, founder and CEO of Super Bottoms, who will talk about D2C brand evolution, how to win 2021 and beyond. Pallavi, please take over.
Thank you, Ankita. Thank you for having me here. Thanks, Kapil. And thanks for the lovely introduction, Ankita.
Welcome.
So, so Ankita, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you're very audible.
Sure, great. So, Ankita, I think the first thing that you had put out to me was what are the 3 things that has worked for us at Super Bottoms, right? To make it future ready or be able to survive in 2021. So I think D2C has become a buzzword. Everyone is talking about D2C and all. So I think I'll just tell you some of the things that worked at Super Bottoms. And as you rightly mentioned, it's a team of mothers. And I think investing in a good team is one of the key things, and you can't be penny wise and pound foolish by saving on that or anything of that sort. So I think the biggest strength for Super Bottoms is a team that is made of its own customers. So most of our team members are mothers who were our customers, and we reached out to them and said, hey, listen, you like our product, why don't you work for us? And most of the times people shy away from getting new mothers on board, but trust me, these women are some of the best people we have. They are very result oriented, they are very focused, they don't have too much time, so they make sure that the work is done in proper time. Most importantly, they bring onto the brand the passion for the concept and the brand, which is as deep as any of the founders have, or even more sometimes we feel, and we work fully remotely. So having a team which is so result oriented and focused is something which has helped us massively, especially all through the lockdown. The second thing I think I would say is a product innovation, and I think any D2C brand would say that is the main thing, because competition to aana hai, your product is going to be there, your hero for some time. There will be people who will come up with a similar product, they will try and copy, there will be a lot of competition coming in. How do you survive? And then there is always the big concern ki cost of acquisition is increasing. how are you going to make sure that you ensure your CAC is under control and still continue to grow with growing competition? The only thing that you can do is continuously innovate on the product, make a product which is so good that your customers recommend it for you. You get those precious word of mouth and repeats. So I think product innovation is second most important thing, and you can't possibly take it lightly. And I think the third thing is community. Another thing that people keep talking about in the space of social media, community banana hai, kaise banaya community, but I think just building a community doesn't work. Having a community which is super authentic, where you even allow negative things about your brand being said, is I think the most important thing. So we have a community of 50,000 mothers, parents rather, on Facebook, who only talk about sustainable baby care, diapering. We are very open to even people talking negative about the brand at times, right? They have a bad experience, so we allow that. And I think that authentic community is one of our biggest strengths. And I think these are the three things that has really helped Super Bottoms.
Great. So Pallavi, I do have a few more questions for you. I just wanted to understand, as you rightly mentioned, success comes with mistake. Can you mention any 3 mistakes which is specific to a D2C brand model that your brand initially committed and you learned from it and grew?
So Ankita, mistakes, the list is very long, to be very honest. I think any entrepreneur would say that there were so many mistakes. It's a long list. But yeah, I think some of the key ones that I feel that we could have controlled as a D2C brand was, we were bootstrapped for the longest time. For the first 2-3 years, we were bootstrapped. So we were very thrifty. We were very careful about how much we are spending. And we've relied completely on word of mouth. We've hardly spent on marketing. But I think in hindsight, I feel we could have spent faster. I know a lot of our investors would say that Pallavi, spend karo, matlab, why are you not doing more on marketing? But we used to say no, I think this is enough. But I think that is that I think is one of the key things I would say to a brand, that grow faster. Of course, be very judicious. You can't just spend out of control, but do invest in your brand, do invest in brand building activities. Don't shy away from doing that. I think that is the most important thing. Second thing is simplification of the product portfolio. So, there are brands internationally, D2C brands, who have succeeded on one single product. A lot of times, there's this temptation of adding to the portfolio. Let's add a range of products and, sell them. Brands have succeeded doing that as well. But I think in our case, what has worked for us is sticking to a product. And we did add a lot of products. It became complicated. And our cash management, inventory management, those things started to become a nightmare. So I think having a focused portfolio and focusing on a few products, but really going deep into them, is something which probably would have been better for us if we would have done it from the start. And I think the third thing that I feel we could have done faster is invest in systems and tech. So being a product company, we invested a lot in product. We invested in continuous innovation. We continuously work on making a better diaper. But I think investing in tech is just as important. And I think we could have done that faster. Now we are, of course, doing it, but we could have done it sooner. So I think these are the 3 things. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the last question that I would like to pose from my end is, what advice would you give to or share with the budding entrepreneurs looking to build a large D2C brand similar to Super Bottoms or in any other sector?
So Ankita, this is something I had asked one of my early investors long back, saying, "मैं marketing के लिए कोई agency ढूंढूं क्या? And should I outsource marketing?" So he told me, Pallavi, there are only 2 things that you as a D2C brand are about. One is a great product, and second thing is the brand. These 2 things you can never outsource, but everything else, please do. So, right, as on date, our entire team focuses on how to create a great brand and how to make a better product for for our customers. Other than that, everything else is outsourced. And I think we have such amazing platforms like Unicommerce and other platforms which are there to support you, right, with everything else. And they are the experts in that. So we have outsourced everything, right from our accounting to order processing to logistics to even HR processes. I think that is something, that advice really helped me early on in deciding what to keep in-house and what not to. And I think any D2C founder can possibly do that, at least up to a certain scale.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Pallavi. Thank you so much for the crisp insights in terms of how a brand in a D2C section should take things in a positive way rather than focusing on just the downfalls. Thank you so much for being with us today.